Apple's new iPhone 17 series is absolutely incredible, at least according to Apple's marketing, which makes the new iPhone models look like the best upgrade ever. But there are actually 17 things that Apple conveniently didn't tell you in their keynote, so let's jump into the first one, which is the fact that the Air does not have stereo speakers. Believe it or not, there is literally only one speaker at the top of the Air, while the bottom grills are literally only for the microphones, which means that if you watch a video in landscape mode like I do all the time, all of the sound will be coming from one side. But on the plus side, for thing number 2, the iPhone Air is an absolute engineering marvel. Now, many people didn't notice this, but almost the entire computer, including the front and rear cameras, are housed directly inside of the camera bump. Yes, that huge camera bump on the back isn't solid glass, but Apple actually cut out the inside of the bump and used that precious space to fit the updated selfie camera and much more, which to me is genius, and it's something that only Apple can pull off right. Now, for thing number 3, moving on to the Pro models, Apple advertised the new 48 megapixel telephoto camera as being an 8x optical zoom lens, but that just isn't true. In fact, it's optically a downgrade compared to the previous 16 Pro models that had a 5x optical zoom. Now, how is Apple getting away with this? Well, it's because they upgraded to a 48 megapixel sensor, so they were able to downgrade to a 4x optical, which is more practical in terms of the focal length, and they actually crop into the center of the new 48 megapixel sensor, giving you a full 12 megapixel photo at 8x zoom, and even though it's not real 8x optical, it should still look much better. But for number 4, one thing that Apple didn't mention but is actually really great is the fact that all of the iPhone 17 models have a toggle to disable PWM screen flickering, because some people have issues with OLED displays with the PWM flickering, so being able to disable it is awesome. Huge props to Apple. Moving on to thing number 5, Apple advertised the iPhone Air as having all-day battery life, but most people online are having trouble believing them because it seems too good to be true with the super thin design. But believe it or not, the iPhone Air actually has the same battery life rating as the previous iPhone 16 Plus model that it replaced. Can you believe it? I guess we're gonna have to test it for ourselves, so definitely subscribe below so you don't miss out, but this is all due to Apple's efficiency with their new custom chips like the N1 and the C1X modem. Now, even though the new iPhones use ceramic shield glass, you should definitely still protect them with a high quality case like from our sponsor Casetify, which have very high quality cases with insane drop resistance, like their bounce case that withstands drops from 21.3 feet thanks to their dual lock tech, which increases durability, and the expanded bounce corners, which allow clipping of accessories. And their new clear case uses UV Defender material, which fights yellowing like from UV rays and stains, so we did a coffee stain test versus a competitor's case, but before I show you guys the results, I gotta get back to thing number 6 that Apple didn't tell you. Unfortunately, the iPhone 17 Air's dynamic island had to be moved down much lower than it is on any other iPhone. Just look at that gap between the dynamic island and the top bezel. So why would Apple do this? Well, because the only way they could fit in the new selfie camera sensor was by putting it inside of the camera bump on the back, which means they had to move it down since the bump is a little bit lower from the top. So this proves that the selfie camera is relying on the camera bump to fit in. Moving on to thing number 7 that Apple didn't tell you, this is actually really good because the entire iPhone 17 lineup is getting the brand new N1 chip, which Apple made it seem like it only comes on the Air, and they didn't mention any other models, but they're all getting it with Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, which is awesome, and Thread networking technology. This is a really big deal because Apple is now finally in control of the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so they can make sure it stays very efficient and doesn't waste battery life, as well as working more reliably with things like switching between cellular and Wi-Fi, which sometimes is very spotty, spotty. Now for number 8, this really sucks for the iPhone Air, but it's limited to 20-watt MagSafe charging, which is really disappointing because you get 25 watts on the rest of the iPhone 17 lineup, and even on the iPhone 16s you get 25 watts with third-party Qi2 chargers, but it's only 20 on the Air, which must have to do with overheating. Now getting back to Casetify's clear case stain test, look at how much better it performed, and we also scratch tested the glazed cases print, and it looks basically as good as new with fun and unique prints with Casetify's inner printing tech that you can mix and match the graphic and color backgrounds on the website. So definitely pick up a Casetify case for your iPhone today using the links below. Now moving on to number 9, Apple kept a huge secret about a pretty big change for the design of the iPhone 17 Pro models, which none of their marketing materials showed off. Remember the old cutout for the millimeter wave antenna that Apple added a couple years ago on the right side of the phone? Well, Apple decided to put it back, but on the top of the new Pro models, which to me looks a little bit ugly, but I guess it makes perfect sense because your hand is not going to be blocking it, so you should get more reliable connection. Now for number 10 on the iPhone Air, Apple didn't tell you this, but the USB-C port is misaligned. Yes, it is not centered. It is now a little bit closer towards the back and away from the display, which looks a little bit ugly, and it makes me think, what if Apple planned to have no port at all on the iPhone Air? Maybe they had to because of the EU, who knows? Now for number 11, the iPhone 17 series just introduced a groundbreaking new memory security feature, which has always-on memory safety protection covering the kernel and over 70 processes built on the enhanced memory tagging extension. I have no idea what any of that means, but apparently it helps stop security attacks like Spectre V1, but with no CPU cost at all. So I guess this is a really big deal for security. Moving on to number 12, the new 18 megapixel center stage front camera is actually a 24 megapixel camera, just like the leaks predicted, but since it's a square sensor and it only lets you shoot in vertical or horizontal aspect ratios instead of allowing you to shoot with the full square sensor, Apple can only advertise it as an 18 megapixel sensor. But yes, it does in fact take 18 megapixel photos instead of 12 like some people thought it would downscale to because of the crop. Yes, it's 18, don't worry. For number 13, another downside for the Air is that you get slower wired charging. It charges up to 50% in 30 minutes instead of 20 minutes on both the Pro and even the less expensive base iPhone 17 model. Why? Well, it's likely due to overheating issues, so Apple decided to cap the charging wattage, which is disappointing. Now for number 14, if you do decide to get the base iPhone 17 or Pro models and you want to fast charge, you actually need a much faster charger than you probably have right now. Apple specs say that you need to use a 40-watt adapter or higher to make this work, but they link to their own brand new 40-watt dynamic charger, which maxes out at 60 watts of charging, so it's actually technically a 60-watt charger. So if you're trying to find a 60-watt charger on Amazon, I'll drop a link in the description below to the best deal. Now for number 15, we have another one for the iPhone Air, and that's the fact that you cannot shoot cinematic video with the Air, which is so disappointing because I use it all the time, and the reason is it only has a single camera. But the worst part is that Apple disabled cinematic video on the selfie camera as well, even though it's exactly the same selfie cam as you get on the rest of the lineup. And another downside is number 16, which is that the iPhone Air still only has USB 2 transfer speeds, just like the super slow Lightning transfer, even though it comes with the A19 Pro chip, so everything is there to allow faster USB 3 speeds, but Apple simply isn't allowing it. And finally, for the 17th thing that Apple didn't tell you, the performance of the A19 and A19 Pro chips have leaked online, and we've got both good and bad news. So if you want to see that, subscribe above for tomorrow's video that'll deep dive into the leaked benchmarks, or if it's already live, you'll find it right up there. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.